Okay, so this tutorial is about um, authentication in NestJS. So I have a project right next to me that I'm gonna build for you. I'm gonna implement a users module with email and password. Then you can add whatever fields you want, and we're gonna have an authentication module that allows users to register and log in. Okay, let's start. So we're gonna start by creating a new NestJS project. So I have to look up the command because I don't remember it by heart. Nest new project up. So nest new. Okay, nest new and just this folder. Okay, so this problem is because if I look at my version, I'm not using the right version. I am going to use this version of Node because I know that I have Nest installed there. There we go. I'm gonna use npm. There we go. So we're gonna wait for this to load. There we go. So it's done installing. I went up and opened the project in VS Code, and I'm about to install all the packages that we need for this tutorial. So here you go. You can see all of them. I'm gonna install them and wait for you to be done with this as well. There we go. It's done installing. Next, I'm gonna delete this test module. I'm gonna delete this, and I will do. Now I'm going to start by making a modules folder, and I'm going to create a new authentication module and user module and Prisma module as well. To do that, we're going to use the NestJS CLI, so I just tried it out because I forgot the command as well. There you go. So you just type nestg resource and then you type the module name. So I'm going to use a uh, I'm gonna put it under the modules folder and user. So this will be a REST API. I do not want CRUDs, and there you go. Then I'm gonna start by deleting the spec files because I'm not gonna do unit tests. This is out of the scope of the video. Um, then we're gonna create a module slash Prisma module as well. I'm gonna put REST API even though it won't be REST API. Up, there we go. Same thing here. I'm gonna delete the controller, all of this, just leave these two in the Prisma, and then I'm gonna make an auth one. Up, no, and I'm gonna delete the spec files here again. There we go. Okay, so now you should have three modules. Now we're gonna start setting up Prisma and doing all the database related stuff. Okay, so we're gonna want to start by running the command npx prisma init. That will initialize Prisma and will create a Prisma folder for you in the root of your project. I'm gonna make a schemas folder under here. No, schema, sorry. And I'm gonna move this file inside. This will allow us to have multiple schema files inside this folder. So if you have a user and later you want to have a product or whatever entity, then you can define that in multiple schema files. This is better in my opinion. But for this to work, you need to add here something because this isn't a fully finished feature inside Prisma, so you have to activate a preview feature. We can also see that Prisma will connect to an env variable that's called the database URL. So we're gonna have to create a .env file with the database URL. So let's start um, by creating a Postgres database with Docker Compose. So for this, I'm going to create a Docker compose.yml, and I'm going to copy over the Docker Compose I already made. So this is pretty easy. It makes a Postgres service with the image Postgres and version 14. Container name Postgres. I expose this port, and the database password is password. Just for this tutorial, I'm putting the username and the password inside the Docker Compose, but you should not do this in production. So now we're gonna use this Postgres user and password inside this variable, this database URL. So this .env file got either created or maybe I already had it, I don't remember, but Prisma added this variable automatically. So here you have to come change to use the variables you put here, so Postgres and password. There you go, for it to be able to connect. There we go. Now we're gonna create a user schema, uh, Prisma, sorry, and I'm gonna copy over the model. Here you go. So it has an ID, an email, which has to be unique, a password, and a name. The password, we will encrypt the password using bcrypt. That's why we installed it earlier. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna start the Docker Compose. So Docker Compose up. Ah, yeah, I have to do sudo. Oh, I messed up the password. Ah, okay, so if this happens to you, this is because I already have a Postgres container and I can solve this by docker container prune. Yes, there you go. And now if I run the command again, it will work. Voila, there you go. I'm gonna create a new terminal here and I'm gonna run npx prisma migrate dev. This will apply the changes of the schema to the database. Enter name for the migration. I'm just gonna leave it empty. There you go. And now, so this is connected to the database and to the Postgres database and change the table formats, etc. Okay, so now we're gonna go into our source modules and Prisma folder. We're gonna open the Prisma module and we're gonna start editing this. So we will not have any controllers, but we will have a Prisma service and we are going to export the service here. Prisma service. There we go. So that's all for the Prisma module and the Prisma service. We have to do just a little change here. This needs to extend the Prisma client. There we go. And that's all. Optionally, you can also extend the on module init and then connect to the database here, but you don't need to do that because Prisma will do it automatically at your first database call. So that's optional. Okay, now we're gonna come edit the app module. So this is the main module. I'm gonna delete all the stuff that it does not find up. I'm gonna actually the user module, it should find that. There we go. And I'm gonna initialize the um, config module. So if you don't know what this allows us to use the config service, which is a service that allows us to access our environment variables. So will be useful a bit later on in the auth module when we try to load the GWT secret value. We'll make this later. Also, we're going to remove the controller and the provider here, but we're going to add another provider, which is, um, provide app pipe, and we're going to use the class validation pipe. So this is so that when we'll have a route for login and for register later, it will automatically validate the body of those routes. So for example, if your login or register route requires an email and a password field, then it will automatically make sure that the email and password is present. If it's not, then it's going to throw an error. Okay, let's continue by closing everything I have open. There we go. And we're gonna start touching the user module. So the user module, we have a controller and a service. Let's start by making the service. So inside the user service, I want multiple functions. I'm gonna want a create function, an update function. I want a function that allows us to get all the users, and a function to get one user, and also one to delete a user. To do all of this, we're gonna use our Prisma service. So we're gonna have to inject it using the constructor here, private Prisma service, Prisma service. There we go. There we go. So now we have access to the Prisma service. Let's start by making the create function. So if I make this like this, so this will be the Prisma user create. I haven't imported Prisma. User create input. So if you hover over this, it should tell you what this is. So this is email, password, and name. And these are types that are automatically created with when you use Prisma, and it's based on your schema that you defined here. So if you add any fields here, and you also do the npx prisma migrate dev, then it will recreate your Prisma client, and these types will be updated. But you have to not forget to do this command. So this function is gonna return a user, but it's an async function, so it's a promise. There we go, and we're gonna wrap this in a try catch because there might be errors, such as a duplicate field of email, for example. But we're gonna handle the errors afterwards. So this is gonna return an await this.prisma service.user.create, and the data is equal to the same data that we get in here, but we are going to override the password field because we want to encrypt it. And so we're going to get this from bcrypt like this, bcrypt.hash data.password. So this is the unencrypted password, and we're going to hash it. There you go. Voila, there we go. Now here we have to catch the errors. So if the error dot is an instance of the Prisma client known, no, Prisma client known request error, and the error dot code equals. This is a bit sketchy. You have to look this up online. In Prisma, P2002 error is thrown when it's a conflict error, when it's something that already exists. So that's why I'm checking for this specifically. If this is the error, then I want to throw a new conflict exception. Email already exists. There we go. And otherwise, I want to throw the error. I want to propagate it to the next function. User is not found because I have to import it. Okay, so there we go. We have our create function. Now let's make an update function. Update user. This is gonna take some parameters, which is of type. You could also just have multiple arguments, but I'm gonna do it like this. Where prisma.user where unique input. This is an auto-generated type by Prisma. Very useful and powerful. There we go. And the data prisma.user update input. Okay. This is a function. We want to extract the where and the data from the params variable, and we want to call the update function on the Prisma service. There we go. Next is the function to get a bunch of users. So I'm just gonna paste it in from my reference project and just explain it here. So this one takes a couple parameters: skip, take, cursor, where, and order by. So order by is pretty obvious. The skip, well, it just skips a bunch of records. So for example, if you want not the 10 first users, so if you want the 10 first users, you could specify a skip of 0 and take 10. If you want the 11th to 20, you would say skip 10 and take 10 because you want 10 users starting from the 10th one. Okay, there you go. Now let's make a function to get one user. So I'm going to call this DTO prisma.user where unique input, and it's gonna either return a user or null. There we go. this is gonna return Prisma service user find unique where detail. There you go. Now delete one, sync delete user where prisma.user where unique input promise user return this.prisma service.user.delete where, and that's it for now. And we have to remember that so if you want if we create a user or we update a user, we get users or we get just only one user, all of this returns a user object. The user object includes the password. So this is what we want actually, because in the service should not be aware whether you want the password or not. It just returns the password, and then it's up to the controller to know if uh, if he wants to remove the password or if he wants to keep it, etc. So hiding fields to the user should be the controller's responsibility, and checking permissions if the user is allowed to do something should be on the controller, and the service should just be accessing the data and doing the business logic. Okay, so now we're gonna make the user controller. So first of all, I'm gonna add an S here because later on we're gonna test on Postman, and I've already set up my routes with an S here. So be careful if you don't add the S later on. So we have access to the user service, and we're gonna have two routes here. We're gonna have a get route, and this is gonna be a find all users. Okay, there we go. It's gonna get all the users like this, user service dot users. So this now we're using our user service that we just built, and we don't have pass any parameters because we just want all the users. And we could just return the users like this, but this is not good because, like I said, this contains the password. So we need to remove the password here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do const users without password, exactly like this. Up like this, and I'm gonna return remove. I didn't put this in this repository yet, but this is very useful. I always have a utils folder, and I have a function in that utils folder that is called remove properties, like this. There you go. So here you can look at it, but this uses generics to be able to remove certain properties from an object. So I can do remove properties. So the user that I'm looping on, this one, and I want to remove the properties password. There we go. So why is he not happy? Why is he not happy? Because he does not want an array. He only wants a string. There we go. And we return the users without password and not the users. There we go. So ideally, this route would be protected by some kind of guard that checks if you are an admin. But again, this is out of the scope of this video, and I'll make tutorials about that later on. And tell me in the comments if you want to see how to do that, how to do user permissions, check if he's an admin and stuff like that. We're going to do a second route here that is a me route. So this route will return information about the user that's connected. So this will prove to us that we can detect what user is making the request. So we're gonna do request like this, and we're gonna make a custom request. Right now we haven't made this yet, and we're gonna go make it right now. And yeah, okay, so let's make this right now. So I'm gonna do a custom request.ts over here, and this custom request is just simply gonna be this. It's just gonna contain the user. The user comes from Prisma client. Yep, there we go. So we have to remember that we're inside our request, we're gonna store a field user that's equal to the Prisma user. Okay. But this will be the job from the guards that we're gonna make in the auth module. So this this part is not made yet. Right now we're gonna find the user equals await this dot user service dot user without an s, and we want to find the user with ID request dot user c. So now I have TypeScript telling me that I have a user here and I want the ID this user. There we go. Apply. And we could return the user, but again we're going to remove the password and do it like this. Okay, so this was the pretty straightforward part. If you've had any trouble up until now, then feel free to leave a comment in the comment section and I'll try to help you as much as I can. And now we're gonna attack the authentication part. Let's start by creating some DTOs. So I'm gonna create a DTO folder here. I'm gonna create a gwt.payload file. This is gonna be simply this. So sub is a field name that we use in just in tech, and this will be the user ID. Now we're gonna yeah, also I should explain this JWT payload is what we will encode as the GWT token. Now we're gonna create a login DTO and a .dto.ts and a register.dto.ts. So the login DTO.ts is gonna be like this. It's a login DTO, and we have two fields in this DTO, an email field and a password field. Now, we're using the class validator to make sure that this email field is actually an email, that this password field is not empty and is a string. So if the user tries to pass a wrong argument, it will not work. And why will it not work? Because inside here, the app module, we have this pipe. This is what I said earlier, this validation pipe that makes sure, because of decorators like these, that on every route that we use the login DTO and the register DTO, it will check if the contents of this DTO is correct. Okay, now for the register DTO, we have something similar, but this time it implements the Prisma.user create input, because if we change our schema here, we want it to give us an error here, and so that we can come and add fields if necessary. So again, these DTOs are used for the controller. When we receive a request, we want to have the body of the request. We want it to have an email, a password, and optionally a name. When we register a user and the login, we want just an email and a password. Okay, let's continue by filling up our auth module. So we're going to start by adding some imports here. We're going to add the user module import, the passport module, the JWT module, and we're going to register this one as sync. So what this does is this allows NestJS to create it on the fly. So we're gonna add a use factory field here, and this is a function that allows us to, for example, take an argument config service here, config service, and I'm gonna inject here config service like this, and now inside this function I have access to the config service. The config service allows you to get variables from the .env file. So this is useful because we want to get the variable gwt secret, just like this. Here I'm using get or throw because if this is not in the end file, I want to throw an error and I want the application to not start. So that's why I'm using get or throw. And also here in the sign-in options, here you can add an expiry date for your GWTs. I'm gonna put 1 day here, but usually this is more like something like 30 minutes or 1 hour, and you have refresh tokens. I will not be covering refresh tokens in this video, but I might if there's enough interest in the comment section. All of these errors are just fixed by linting. And we're gonna add some providers here. We're gonna add a local strategy provider and a JWT strategy. So this is, we can't import this yet because we haven't made it yet. So we're gonna go make it right away, and we're gonna add here strategies, and we're gonna have a local.strategy.ts and a jwt.strategy.ts. So let's start by the local strategy. So first of all, let me explain what it is. So this local strategy is, the strategies are ways to authenticate in your application. So the local strategy is, I want to authenticate with an email and a password, and the JWT strategy is I want to authenticate with a JWT token. So you only have to provide your email and password once through your local strategy, and then using your JWT token, you can authenticate again and prove that you are who you say you are, because the JWT token is signed on the server. Now let's start implementing this. Yeah, this local strategy. I'm in the wrong file. So here at injectable export class local strategy, this extends passport strategy like this, and we have to strategy. I'm having a bit of trouble. Okay, so my auto import does not find it here, but this comes from passport local. So maybe I did not install it. Passport. No, I did install it. Okay, so I don't know, but this should work normally. Okay, I think I'm just not done here. If I add this, then yeah, voila. So now this works. Okay, so just import it like this from passport local. Make sure it's passport local and not passport JWT in the local strategy. So here you want to have a constructor private auth service, and you want to call super with username field email, just like this. There you go. Async validate. So this is the function that's called inside the strategy. This receives a key and a value, and in our case it's an email and a password up, because this is technically could be a username, for example, but we want it to be an email in our case. That's why I provided email here. So it's it's an email and a password. Here you're going to try to find the user. So await this dot auth service dot, and we haven't made the auth service yet. So let's start by doing that. Okay, I'm here in the auth service now. I'm gonna add a constructor. I'm gonna need the service, user service. There we go, and private JWT service, like this. Okay, there we go. Now it's pretty. And we're gonna make a function that's called validate user by password. It's gonna take a key and a value, which is the password. I'm having trouble typing today, or every day, I don't know, maybe. And it's gonna return a user. Const user equals await this dot user service dot user. So remember this function that we made earlier, and we're gonna try to find the user with the key, with the email key. Voila. We're gonna import this. We're gonna say that if there is no user, then I want to return null. And now we're gonna check if the password is valid. So is password valid equals await bcrypt.compare pass and user.password. There we go. And we have to import bcrypt again. I'm gonna import it just like this. Up. Now I can say um, so if the password is invalid, then return null, and otherwise return the user. There we go. And if I lint this, now it's properly formatted, and there we go. Now the next function in this service is going to be a login function. So this is going to be the function that is called in the JWT strategy. So this one will be called in the local strategy and this one in the JWT strategy. So here we already have the user in the JWT strategy and we want to assign a payload. So I'm gonna make a payload of type JWT payload. So if you remember earlier, we made this type and it has field sub, which is the user ID. So we're gonna do it like this. So sub is the user.id. There we go. And we want to return dot sign payload. There we go. So that's all this function does. Now that we have our auth service, we can come back in the local strategy and say validate by user password. Um, Here email and password. If there is no user, then we want to throw a new unauthorized exception. And otherwise, if there is a user, well then great, he has access and we return the user. Now, let's make the JWT strategy. Here, we're gonna actually, yeah, we're gonna do it by hand. Add injectable here, export class JWT strategy extends the passport strategy like this, and the strategy this time comes from passport JWT. So make sure that you don't mess these up because otherwise, well, it won't work. Obviously. There we go. Up, private, read only the user service. I need the user service here. And then I'm also gonna need the config service, config service. There we go. Why is he not happy? Because I haven't called super here. Since this one extends another class, we need to call super, and this password strategy needs some arguments. So first of all, we're gonna say JWT from request is equal to this extract JWT dot from. Why do I not have the because this is not found for some reason. Okay, but it's from auth header as bearer token. So this means that to get the JWT from the request, we will check for the authentication field and for a bearer token. So I will show you in Postman later what this means. We're gonna have some other arguments here. Ignore expiration is false because we want it to not ignore the expiration. And the secret key is config service.get, and here it should be get or throw, just like before, like this. Okay, here we have another method, validate, once again just like in this one, validate, say. But here it's a bit different because instead of having the email and the password, we have a JWT payload, and we try to find the user this way. Dot user. There we go. And we return user. The reason why we return user here is because if this is null, it will return null anyway. We could add this if there's no user up, but it's useful. It's useless, but I'll leave it like this. This is fine. Now that we have this, we're gonna come back in the module here and we're gonna import those two strategies that we made earlier. There we go. Oops. There we go. And now we're gonna start making our auth controller. So we have this with the auth service, and we will also need the user service here. User service, like this. We're gonna have one route that is login. Actually, let's start with register because it makes more sense. We're gonna make it. We're gonna call it register because the name doesn't really matter. It's what is in here that matters. The body is the register DTO that we made earlier, and it's simply user equal await this user service, create body, and we want to return the user without its password. So just like this. We have to import this. There we go. Now we're gonna make another route, login, async, login. Let's see what he proposes. No, no. Async login requests. This is a custom request, and we're gonna get the access token here. So this is the JWT token, and we're gonna do await this dot auth service dot login request dot user up, and we're gonna return. We'll do the token like this. Here you can return it however you want, but I'm gonna do it like this. Remove properties, request.user, and I'm gonna remove the password. There we go. So this is it for now. Now we're gonna add two guards, a JWT guard and a local guard. So I'm gonna make a guards folder here, and I'm gonna make local.guard.ts and a jwt.guard.ts. Okay, so here I'm gonna come and I'm gonna paste all of this, and I'm gonna give you a look at it if you want to copy it. So this, we define a class local auth guard. It extends from auth guard local. Auth guard here is from NestJS passport. We define a can activate method with a context, and we get the request and the response from this context. Then we use the class transformer library to make sure that our body from the request is respected as we want. So we want to make sure that there is an email and a password field, and then it respects this. So that's what all this code does. If there are errors, then we're gonna send them an error and say it's a bad request and say why here with the error messages. And if there are no errors, then we call the can activate of the local guard. So basically, if a user calls the login route, it will first go through here through this code, and then it will call this, which will eventually call here the local strategy, validate the user, validate it by password. If it's not good, then it sends an unauthorized error, and if it's good, well then it's good, and he returns the user. Okay, I just noticed that I put this in the wrong file, so I'm gonna take all of this and I'm gonna put it in the local file. And now I'm gonna populate the JWT guard. This is the JWT guard. Um, so how this works is we're gonna create a decorator that is public, and we're gonna protect automatically all our routes with JWT. So every single route that we're going to define in this application will be protected by JWT, which means that you need a user account to call the route unless there is a public decorator on this. So to do this, we're going to create I'm going to close all of this. We're going to create a decorators directory, and we're going to say public.decorator.ts, and we're gonna put this just like this. Here I am going to define this in utils. Here I'm going to define the constants ts and export app, export const app decorators is public, just like this. Okay. I'm doing this so that I don't have to write this hard-coded value everywhere and to prevent making mistakes. So I import this dot is public. This way, if I want to change this key, if I want to change this key, I can just do it here without making any mistakes. Um, so I need to import it here as well. So what we do here is before checking if the user is logged in, etc., we first check if the route has a public decorator, and if it does, then we just return that the user has access. And if it does not, then it continues in this code, and it will check if the user has access through the JWT strategy here. There we go. Now to use this guard, we're gonna go into the Auth module here, and we're gonna add here a provider app like this. We're gonna do provide an app guard and use class JWT auth guard. This means that this JWT auth guard is used on all our routes. Okay, now I think that we're good to test this. I'm not 100% sure, but we'll see. So I'm just gonna run this to make sure that everything is okay. Yeah, and npm run start dev. Okay, I got an error, so let's look at it together. Uh, okay, so the error here says that is user module a valid NestJS module? Prisma service is a provider. Is it part of the current user module? So what this means is that in the user service here, I'm trying to inject the Prisma service, but in the user module, I do not have the Prisma service or the user module, the Prisma module. So I have to import it. Here I have to Prisma module just like this, and this should fix the error. Okay, let's see. So I have another problem here. Auth module, is it correct module? So let's look. Okay, so here the problem in the is that this auth module, it tries to use the user service, for example, in the auth service. If I'm not mistaken, yeah. It tries to import a user service and it imports the user module for that. But in the user module, we do not export the user service. So we need to export it here and this will solve the problem. Okay, that's good. And now we have another problem. JW2 strategy requires a secret or key. Okay, so this is perfect. So here the problem is that we did not add a JWT secret in our end file. So to do this, we can run this simple command here. Here you can look at it, like that, and if you run it, it gives you a bunch of characters, which is perfect for a JWT secret. And now if we run it again, hopefully no errors anymore. There we go, now it's good. So now I'm gonna launch Postman and we're gonna test this out. Okay, so before launching Postman, even though it's already open, I have pg admin 4 here, and we can see that in the user table there are no users right now. So if I come here in my Postman, I have a couple routes. I have a register route, a login, get all, and me. But before showing this, I'm going to show you that I have an environment here, local, with a few variables. So I have the host variable, which is http localhost 3000. Why is that? Because here, if we open the main folder here, I have my application on port 3000 here. So that's why it's port 3000 here. And the JWT, you won't have a JWT yet, but I'm going to show you how to get one. So if here we go into register and I provide, let's say I forget to provide this, to provide the email. So by the way, how do you do this? You come create the post. Here you use the host variable that we declared in the environment. You come into the body, raw, JSON here, and then you provide whatever you want here. And here, if you click send, it says unauthorized. Uh, Let me check because there should be, it should say that there's a problem with the body. Okay, yeah, I figured it out. We forgot to go into the auth controller and specify that these routes are public. So do you remember we created this decorator is public, and here into the auth module we defined that all our routes are protected with the JWT auth card. Well, we want them all to be protected except if you accept the register, because of course if you want to register, it means that you don't have an account yet. So we want this route to be public. The public should not come from here, it should come from here. And we want this one to be public as well. There we go. And the login should also use guard here, local auth guard. There we go. Okay, now it should be better. So if I do this again and I remove this, up, there we go. There now it says that the email must mean email. Since I don't provide an email, he's not happy. If I do provide an email, but it's not actually an email, such as this, it's still not valid. And if I forget to put a password, for example, well, now he's not happy because it's not JSON that I gave, because there's an extra comma here. There we go. Now he says that he's not happy because no password. I'm adding a password. And there you go, the user is created. So now I created a user with example@gmail.com. If I recreate a user, it's going to tell us that the email already exists. So to be clear, this comes from here, the auth service, email already. No, the user service here. So we're checking for the conflict error. There you go. Now for the login here, same thing. It's a post auth login in body raw JSON, and you provide something. If I provide something that is wrong, it will tell us that it's unauthorized, and if it's correct, then it gives us a token and our user information. If I remove this, by the way, same thing here. It says that our fields are missing. So let's take this token now up. Let's take this token and we put it in here. There we go. And now I go back here in the collection and I try to get all users. So there's only one user, so let's make a few more users. Up. There we go. If I get them all now, here we go. We have all the users. And if I want to get my user, then what we're going to do is we're going to pass some authorization. So also actually I should have specified it, but for this one, the authorization is inherited from the auth parent. So this is here. It's inherited from this collection. And if you go inside authorization here, I specified bearer token and I specified the variable that we just defined here in our environment. That's how Postman knows how to put it in the request. So now if I call this me route, it will only send my information. So thanks to the JWT, thanks to this big string, we know that it is this user. It is this user with this email and the password. But we don't show the password because that's not safe to. It's not a good idea to share encrypted passwords, hash passwords, sorry, to your users. So there you go, that's it for today. That was the tutorial about authentication with NestJS and Postgres. If you want more tutorials, well, it doesn't matter because I'm gonna make more anyway. But if you like it, then yeah, subscribe and post comments. Thank you.